Have you ever noticed how people treat you differently when you suddenly stop being available all the time? When you stop answering every call immediately? When you stop saying yes to every favor? When you stop showing up the moment someone else demands your attention? Suddenly, everything shifts. The people who took you for granted begin to notice your absence. The relationships you thought were balanced reveal their true colors. And the world that once seemed to drain you now begins to respect you. This idea is not just a modern self-help cliché. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, understood this deeply. He believed that human relationships, the way we show up for others, and the boundaries we set, directly shape how others perceive us, and more importantly, how we perceive ourselves. Today, in this first part of our three-part series, we're going to explore what truly happens when you stop being overly available. We'll uncover the psychological reasons behind it, the subtle shifts in human behavior that Jung noticed, and why scarcity, your absence, sometimes speaks louder than your presence. So, grab your headphones, because once you understand this principle, you'll never look at relationships, friendships, or even your own self-worth in the same way again. 1. The trap of constant availability. Let us start with the obvious question. Why do we make ourselves so available in the first place? Most of us are conditioned from childhood to believe that being helpful, being present, being always there is a good thing. Parents praise the child who is obedient. Teachers admire the student who always cooperates. Society glorifies the selfless friend, the partner who never says no, the worker who always stays late. But Carl Jung saw something dangerous here. He warned that when a person constantly bends to the will of others, they suppress their own individuality, their own self, as Jung called it. Jung believed the journey of life was to become your true self, a process he named individuation. And if you're always available, always present for everyone else's needs, you never have time to listen to your own. You become a shadow of yourself, literally. Jung's concept of the shadow explains that all the parts of yourself you neglect or deny don't disappear. They simply hide, waiting to erupt later in anger, frustration, or bitterness. So ironically, the person who tries hardest to be loved by being constantly available often ends up feeling invisible, unappreciated, and even resentful. Human nature values scarcity. Here's where psychology gets interesting. Humans, by nature, value what is scarce. If gold were lying around on every street corner, it would be worthless. If diamonds grew on trees, nobody would fight for them. And the same rule applies to human relationships. When you are always there, your presence loses its weight. People stop noticing the effort you put in. Your kindness is taken as the baseline, not a gift. Jung would say that this isn't necessarily malicious. It's just unconscious human behavior. People don't always realize they're devaluing you, but the moment you step back, the moment you create space, they feel the absence. Suddenly, your presence becomes meaningful again. Think about it. How many times have you only realized the importance of someone after they stopped showing up? How often do we take friends, partners, or even family for granted until they withdraw their constant availability? This shift is not manipulation. It's a reflection of human psychology. Scarcity creates value. Your time, your energy, your attention, they are limited. And when you stop handing them out freely, people begin to recognize their worth. Point 3. The fear of disconnection. So why don't we pull back sooner? Why do we keep making ourselves so available even when we're drained? Fear. The fear of being left out. The fear of being abandoned. The fear of being seen as selfish or unkind. Carl Jung studied the unconscious mind, and he noticed that many of our behaviors are not chosen consciously. They come from deeper fears and archetypes buried inside us. One of these archetypes is the people pleaser, which often grows from the childhood belief, if I am good, if I am available, if I make others happy, then I will be loved. This belief is so strong that we carry it into adulthood. We think our worth depends on availability, but Jung would challenge us with this question. If your presence only matters when it is constant, is it really valued at all? True love, true friendship, true respect, they do not require your constant sacrifice. In fact, when you create distance, when you prioritize yourself, those who truly care for you will still remain. Those who vanish were never truly there in the first place. 4. The power of withdrawal. Jung often spoke about the power of withdrawal, not as an act of punishment, but as an act of self-preservation. When you withdraw your constant availability, you are making a statement. My time is valuable. My energy matters. My life has meaning beyond serving everyone else. This doesn't mean you cut everyone off. It doesn't mean you become cold or selfish. It simply means you become intentional. You choose when to give your energy and when to protect it. And here's the magic. People begin to respect you more. Friends who once expected you to always be available begin to pause before making demands. Colleagues who leaned on you for every little task start taking responsibility themselves. Partners who may have unconsciously taken you for granted suddenly recognize your independence. In Jungian terms, this is the beginning of individuation. You are no longer living as an extension of others' needs. You are beginning to live as your own authentic self. 5. Stories that prove the point. Let's make this real. Imagine a friend who always replies instantly to messages. You know that no matter when you text, 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., they'll respond. After a while, do you truly appreciate that? Or does it just become expected? Now imagine one day they stop. They don't reply for hours, maybe even days. Suddenly, you feel their absence. You begin to think about them more. You wonder if you've done something wrong, or if they're okay. Their silence becomes louder than their constant words. This is the paradox of human connection. Sometimes absence speaks louder than presence. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind reacts to absence in powerful ways. When something once constant disappears, our minds fill in the gaps. We project meaning, we reflect, we revalue. And this is why withdrawal can transform relationships more than constant availability ever could. 6. The first step to change. So, how do you begin? The first step is awareness. Simply noticing how much of your energy goes into being constantly available is powerful. Track it. Notice how often you say yes when you want to say no. Notice how often you're present for others while abandoning yourself. The second step is boundaries. Carl Jung often said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And part of accepting yourself is realizing that your needs matter too. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors. They let the right people in and keep the wrong people out. The third step is silence. Try it. Don't always rush to fill every gap with words, actions, or presence. Sometimes, your silence, your absence, can reveal more than constant giving ever could. Ending teaser for part 2. And this is just the beginning. In part 1, we've explored why constant availability devalues you, how scarcity creates respect, and why Jung believed individuation requires withdrawal. But in part 2, we're going to go deeper. We'll uncover the hidden dynamics of power, attraction, and respect. We'll see how entire relationships shift, and even how societies are structured, once you stop being endlessly available. So if this resonated with you, stay tuned, because in the next part, you'll discover just how much changes, not only in how others see you, but in how you finally see yourself. In the last part, we discovered why being constantly available often backfires, how it lowers your value, drains your energy, and blinds others to your worth. But now, let's go deeper, because when you finally step back, when you stop being the person who is always on call, something incredible happens. The entire balance of power shifts. Carl Jung believed that relationships, whether friendships, romances, or even professional ones, are not just random interactions. They are psychological contracts. And when you change your side of the contract, when you stop being endlessly available, everything else in that dynamic begins to change as well. Today, we'll explore 3 profound shifts that occur once you reclaim your time and energy. The shift in power and respect. The shift in attraction and desire. The shift in your inner self-image. 1. The shift in power and respect. Let's be honest. Human relationships are full of invisible power dynamics. It's not about manipulation, but about balance. When one person is always available, always giving, always present, always saying yes, they unconsciously hand over power. They signal, my time is less valuable than yours, my needs come second. You are the center, I orbit around you. Carl Jung warned that when we do this, we step into a dangerous archetype, the servant. This archetype is not about kindness, but about submission, and over time, it distorts relationships. The other person begins to expect, not appreciate. But the moment you stop being endlessly available, you take back that power. You send a new signal, my time is precious, my energy matters, my life is not for rent. And suddenly, respect begins to grow. People may resist at first, they may test your boundaries, they may even accuse you of changing. But deep down, they feel it. You are no longer a servant, you are becoming your own person. Jung called this process individuation, the reclaiming of your true identity. And nothing commands more respect than a person who values themselves. 2. The shift in attraction and desire. Now let's talk about something even more fascinating, attraction. Have you noticed how people often chase what they cannot easily have? It's not just romance. It happens in friendships, careers, even hobbies. The rare, the scarce, the slightly out of reach, it pulls us in. When you were always available, your presence was like background noise, nice, but unnoticed. But once you step back, once you create space, people start to lean in. They want to know, why aren't you always here anymore? What changed? Jung's psychology explains this through the concept of projection. When you step back, people begin to project their desires, fears, and insecurities onto your absence. They may imagine you are busier, more important, or more independent than before. And ironically, this makes you more attractive, not because you've changed, but because you've stopped flooding them with constant presence. This is why in relationships, mystery and space often reignite desire. Too much availability can smother attraction. Space allows imagination, and imagination fuels longing. 3. The shift in your inner self-image. But perhaps the biggest change happens inside you. When you stop being endlessly available, you begin to see yourself differently. For the first time, you're not defined by what others need from you. You're not running on call, waiting for the next demand. Instead, you reclaim your agency. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that journey begins when you stop living through others' expectations. You begin to notice you have more energy for your passions. You feel less resentment toward the people around you. You gain confidence in saying no without guilt. You discover parts of yourself you had abandoned while serving everyone else. This is liberation, not the loud kind, but the quiet, steady liberation of self-respect. 4. Resistance and pushback. Of course, it's not all smooth. When you stop being overly available, some people won't like it. They may guilt trip you. You've changed. They may accuse you of being selfish. They may even pull away. But Jung would remind us, this is the shadow emerging, not yours, but theirs. Your withdrawal forces others to confront their dependence on you. It shines a light on the ways they've leaned on your availability. Some relationships will survive the shift, and they will grow stronger. Others will crumble, revealing they were never built on mutual respect to begin with. Both outcomes are victories. Why? Because the relationships that remain are the ones worth keeping. 5. A real-life example. Let's imagine 2 colleagues, Sarah and James. Sarah is always available. She replies instantly to every email, stays late to help, never says no. Everyone loves Sarah, but they don't respect her time. Slowly, she becomes the office go-to person, not because she's valued, but because she's easy to use. James, on the other hand, is helpful but not endlessly available. He responds thoughtfully, not instantly. He sets boundaries. He won't stay late every day. He won't answer emails on weekends. At first, some colleagues find him difficult, but over time, James is respected. People prepare before asking him for help because they know his time is valuable. Both Sarah and James are kind. Both are competent, but only one commands respect, and that's the one who refuses to be endlessly available. 6. Psychological freedom. The truth is, stopping constant availability is not about pushing others away. It's about freeing yourself from unconscious chains. Jung often said that most people live not by choice, but by habit and unconscious patterns. When you're always available, you're not choosing, you're reacting, you're stuck in a pattern. But once you step back, you begin to live consciously. You choose when to give, when to rest, when to connect, and when to be alone. This conscious living is the foundation of Jung's philosophy, and the foundation of freedom. Ending teaser for part 3. So far, we've seen how withdrawing your constant availability reshapes power, attraction, and even your own self-image. But there's one more level left, the deepest level of transformation. In part 3, we'll explore what happens when this principle doesn't just change your relationships, but your entire destiny. We'll talk about Jung's idea of individuation at its fullest, how saying no to constant availability is really saying yes to your authentic life purpose. You don't want to miss it, because the final step is where everything changes. Not just how others see you, but how you finally step into who you were always meant to be. We've already seen how stepping back from constant availability changes everything. It shifts power, it deepens attraction, and it transforms your self-image. But now, in this final part, we're going to take this principle to its ultimate conclusion. Because when you stop being endlessly available, you don't just change relationships, you change the direction of your entire life. You stop living as a reaction to others' needs, and you begin living as the author of your own destiny. Carl Jung believed that this moment, the moment you reclaim your time and identity, is the beginning of something extraordinary, individuation. And this process doesn't just make you respected, it makes you whole. 1. Individuation, becoming who you truly are. For Jung, the greatest goal of life was not wealth, not status, not even happiness. It was wholeness, to integrate all the parts of yourself, the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow, into a complete, authentic self. But here's the problem. If you're always available for others, you're never available for yourself. You silence your own needs, your own voice, your own path, and without space for your true self, you cannot individuate. When you stop being constantly available, you reclaim that space. For the first time, you can hear your own inner voice. You begin to notice what truly matters to you, not what others demand from you. This is the turning point where availability shifts from an external service to an internal gift. You become available, but to your own life, your own dreams, your own calling. 2. The sacred power of no. Think about how many times you've said yes when you really wanted to say no. Every time you do this, a small piece of you disappears. Jung would call this self-betrayal, when your conscious actions split away from your true self. But every time you say no when you mean it, something magical happens. You grow stronger. You become more authentic. No is not rejection. It is direction. It is the word that clears a path for your deeper yes. Your yes to your own growth. Your yes to your own passions. Your yes to your authentic journey. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Saying no is one way to make the unconscious conscious. It's the moment you stop being ruled by habit, guilt, or fear, and start living with intention. 3. The transformation of relationships. As you go deeper into this process, something profound happens to your relationships. At first, people resist your new boundaries, but over time, those who truly value you will adjust. In fact, your relationships will become healthier. Why? Because they'll finally be based on mutual respect, not on silent expectation. The friends who remain will be those who love you for who you are, not for what you provide. The partners who stay will be those who value your independence, not your obedience. The colleagues who respect you will be those who see your worth, not your endless availability. And those who cannot handle your boundaries, they'll fade away. Painful as it is, this is freedom. Jung believed that what falls away when you individuate is exactly what no longer serves your journey. First, loneliness and the gift of solitude. One challenge people often face when they stop being constantly available is loneliness. Suddenly, you're not surrounded by the constant buzz of others' demands. The silence can feel strange, even painful. But Jung would tell us, do not run from this silence, because in silence, the unconscious finally speaks. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is emptiness. Solitude is fullness. It's the moment you realize you don't need constant noise to feel alive. You don't need constant demands to feel useful. In solitude, you meet yourself, and once you meet that self, you are never truly alone again. 5. Living with intention. When you stop being endlessly available, you gain the most precious resource of all, time. Time to learn, time to create, time to grow, time to simply be. Jung believed that much of modern suffering comes from a lack of meaning. People run endlessly, serve endlessly, but never stop to ask, why am I here? What is my purpose? But when you reclaim your time, when you stop scattering it to every demand, you can finally begin to answer that question. You can live with intention. Every choice becomes deliberate. Every moment becomes aligned with your deeper self. 6. A life reimagined. Let's imagine 2 versions of your life. In the first version, you remain endlessly available. You are always there, always saying yes, always bending. You feel needed, but never truly respected. Years pass, and you wonder why your own dreams never had space to grow. In the second version, you learn to step back. You say no when you need to. You create silence. At first, some relationships fall away, but what remains is stronger. And in the space that opens up, your passions grow. You discover your authentic path. You live with self-respect. Which life would you rather live? Carl Jung would remind you, you are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to become. 7. The ripple effect. Here's the final secret. When you stop being endlessly available, you don't just change yourself, you change others. Your boundaries give others permission to create their own. Your self-respect teaches others to respect themselves. Your courage to say no inspires others to stop living in fear of rejection. In this way, your individuation becomes a gift to the world. By becoming whole, you show others that they too can be whole. Ending closing message. So what really happens when you stop being available? At first, people notice your absence. Then, they begin to respect your presence. But in the deepest sense, you rediscover yourself. Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us that life is not about being endlessly available to everyone else. It is about being truly available to yourself, your soul, your purpose, your authentic self. Because when you stop being available to the world's every demand, you finally become available to your own destiny. So take a step back, say no, create space, listen to the silence, because everything changes, and in that change, you may just find the life you were always meant to live.